Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be doing another one of these kind of slow walkthroughs. So I did one for SJT the other day explaining my thought processes a little bit more, and I know that a lot of people have been requesting a verbal reasoning video, so I thought it might be quite helpful if I did a bit more of a slow walkthrough on verbal reasoning, just picking apart one or two of the question sets from the early parts of the question bank from the official Ucat question bank. So the idea of this is to try and understand my thought processes, how I would approach questions, and if you guys are new to the channel here and you haven't already seen my earlier videos where I talk about, so I have one main VR video which you can find in the verbal reasoning playlist, which is about 50 minutes long, where I talk about some unorthodox techniques, right? So not just about reading and comprehending fast, but how do you actually eliminate answers effectively and how can you get to the answer hopefully faster. I've also done a couple of VR walkthroughs and I will try and do another one for you guys as soon as possible. But let's get straight into this. So the idea with this is obviously I'm not going to approach it at exam speed. I'm going to do it slower, but I'm going to explain what I'm thinking. So if we get into this then. Okay, so I see this question, it's short enough. So a couple of things I look for in terms of VR. So, I do also have a VR strategy video, which you can find under my general Ucat guidance playlist. But in it, I talk about which passages I do. And normally, I do a set not based on the questions, but based on what the actual passage looks like. So here, it's a somewhat shortish passage, and also it's divided into paragraphs, which makes our life a lot easier. Okay, so this first question I'm going to do because it is a keyword question, right? So Teruel is known for, okay? And then what I do is I quickly read all of these. So notable quality of the soil, increasing consumption of truffles, high production of black truffles, premium price of truffles. And obviously the point here is I'm not trying to remember everything, but just hopefully I can keep something in my mind. And probably it'll take me like about 2 seconds to quickly scan it. Just remember, I'm not trying to read it to memorize it, just to remember some of the words if possible. And even if I don't remember any of them, it's fine, because what can you do as you're reading? You can always flick back and forth, right? So it's just to give me a little bit of an idea. And then I'll keep reading. So my kind of technique is that I do a bit more of a deep skim, so I'll just read from the start. So as a child, Manolo Donate often saw strange men and dogs in the mountains near his house in Sarrion, a town in the Teruel province of Aragon in Spain. They were hunting the abundant wild truffles. In the 1980s, while visiting a plantation in France, he decided to become the first in Teruel to cultivate truffle-producing oak trees. By the way, this isn't how fast I would read it. I would read it faster, but I'm just doing that kind of slow walkthrough with you guys. The other thing that I tend to do when I am deep skim reading is I will look for key ideas. Mountains, house, Sarrion, Teruel province, Aragon, Spain, hunting abundant wild truffles, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so people thought he was crazy. Simona, his daughter. How to farm. Little was known about how to farm the fungus. It takes about 10 years for the trees to produce, but it worked today. Today, Teruel. So I see Teruel here. Obviously, I saw it here, but it didn't really. It was kind of the intro stuff, and that's another thing as well. Normally, the first paragraph is intro stuff, but it could have been mentioned here. You never know, which is why I still read it. Today, Teruel is the world's biggest producer of tuber melanosporum, the prince of black truffles. So I'd say that this is probably likely to be the answer, and it's going to be one of those things where, remember, if you deep skim read, that's fine, but you've got to be able to use the info that you've just read and have somewhat of a memory around it. And here it says, last year the region exported more than 26,000 kilograms of them. At this point, a lot of you guys might not be sure if that's the answer, so you might continue reading. For me personally, I just go with it. So what I might do is I might flag it, if I'm not entirely sure. So forgot that the flag button sometimes doesn't work on here. So I'll just flag it and then I'll just keep going. And the point here is I'll bear these ideas in mind. So then hopefully, if I read something later, something might click in my mind. And let's say, imagine I had got this wrong and it was D, for example, then I might be able to remember that. Okay, so on to the next question. I'd immediately skip this. So this, because it's 4 unrelated random statements, right? I'm looking for those keyword questions first. The point is I'm not going to skip this completely. I'm going to skip it until I find the easier questions in the set. I mean, there might not be any easier. All the other questions might be like this. But I'm going to do those easy ones first and then come back to this. And then I can use the knowledge that I've gained by doing the other questions to hopefully rule out some of the answers here. Okay? So each of the following statements, okay, I'm going to skip this again because once again, it's just 4 statements, right? It's not really relevant here. I've 4 random things. It would take me time to do, so I'm going to go and look for something better, hopefully. Great. So according to the passage, Spaniards rarely eat truffles because historically they were a forbidden food. They're all sold to other countries. They do not yet have international recognition. People prefer to eat Parma ham. I'd probably say, remember, using my technique of ruling out, I probably would rule out D. Okay. And if I was going to guess an answer, I'd guess A. Obviously, I probably wouldn't guess A, because C doesn't really make sense. Would a Spaniard not eat a truffle because it doesn't have international recognition? B says they are all sold to other countries. I mean, surely you can spare a truffle or two, right? So A is probably what makes most sense. But like I said, I'm just going to read, and I perhaps would direct my answer towards this one, but I'm going to read all of them just to bear them in mind. So production from France's Périgord region, previously the biggest producer, has plummeted over the past century as farmers switched to easier crops. Truffle farmers must introduce the fungus to young trees and replant each tree in a field when the truffles produce. Finding them requires trained animals. But Teruel's meager soil is unfit for most crops, so locals have bet everything on the black diamonds. Production has enriched farmers. Black truffles fetch up to €700 per kilogram, and it has halted depopulation. Sarion's population has held steady even as Aragon's has fallen. Okay, the next step is international recognition, says Daniel Brito, head of Teruel's Truffle Farming Association. Périgord truffles are still the gold standard. Mr. Brito hopes to win a geographical indication like those for Champagne or Parma ham before the next season starts. So you can see already here, it kind of makes sense why I ruled it out, but here it's not really talking about why the Spaniards don't eat truffles. Another challenge is that Spaniards rarely eat truffles. They were banned during the Spanish Inquisition as a poison from hell. Okay, makes sense. So I mean, I could have definitely scanned a little bit more, right? I could definitely have scanned to find Spaniards specifically. But the point here is, because I like to deep scan, hopefully I should be able to do these questions a little bit better. So each of the following statements can be supported except. So Teruel has always had many truffles, is labour intensive, Aragon is a mountainous region, locals like to eat truffles. Well, this one's wrong, right? Because what did we just learn here? That historically they were a forbidden food. And so here it says locals like to eat truffles for their supper. So I would say that that probably isn't true. Okay, and yeah, so let's keep going. Which of the statements is best supported? Spanish truffle farmers are wealthier than French ones. Farm black truffles originally harvested in Teruel. So this one, I remember it saying that about they were. So this is one of those, where I remember saying about the 700 per kilo, and it said that the production in France's region has dropped, but that doesn't mean that their farmers are wealthier for sure, right? So I'd say I'd probably rule out A. Truffles are a successful crop because they're easy to harvest. That's wrong because remember you needed specific animals to hunt them. French farmers switched to easier crops because the Périgord truffles were no longer in demand. So we don't know about, this is one of those where, this is one of the classic questions where like half of it is true and half of it is wrong. So French farmers switched to easier crops, that's true. But it's not, we don't know if it was whether it was in demand. It just says as farmers switch to easier crops. So like people see this first bit and click true, but this is one of like the common tricks that people might fall for. So here, I remember right at the top it said that's when someone became the first to cultivate truffle producing oak trees. So I think this is going to be the answer. Originally harvested in late 20th, 1980s, takes 10 years for trees to produce. Yeah, okay, so yeah, it's going to be that answer. Okay. So on to the next question then. The next question set. But you can see what I mean about in terms of the order of doing the questions. It definitely makes our life easier, especially this third question I was able to do really, really fast, even if I'd spent a little bit longer on that other question. Okay, but I think the order of doing questions is pretty much vital. So the key difference between living in areas such as Edenville and living in a town or city is, okay, low income of local residents, countryside, local residents willing to organise, do something, absence of housing or rent, civil servants do more for urban dwellers than rural dwellers. I mean, just in general, which of these makes sense? So I don't really think that makes sense, the civil servants bit, and the other three could probably make sense, any one of them. Okay, so let's keep going. So obviously I didn't talk about the passage here, but short passage, quite nice. Okay, so some rural areas such as Cumbria's Eden Valley provide a model of volunteerism and how companies' aspirations can be identified, expressed, and achieved. People know their neighbours and almost treat them like part of extended family, unlike townsfolk. So, okay, who wouldn't often recognise, let alone speak to the person living next door. So, I'd probably say this is going to be the answer: willingness to organise and do something, because it's something about people and their like communities basically. C doesn't make sense, A doesn't make sense, only B can make sense. Once again, if you're not too sure about it, remember, you can always flag it and we can move on. And if you find something contradictory a little bit later, cool. As a consequence of the Big Society program, Whitehall officials now work for community groups, operate very differently when the end decisions are the same, still only do work for ministers, operate very differently, leading to significantly different outcomes. So what did I say in my long VR video, which if you guys haven't watched it yet, you definitely should do. The answers they're very similar, but they're opposing. Normally, one of this is likely to be answered, so I probably would rule out A and C immediately. And if I was guessing this, I probably would guess between one of the two. So let's go for one of these. So basically, I'm going to focus on B and D, and I'm going to read from here because I remember reading so far. I don't read anything about Big Society or Whitehall. Recently, about 150 unpaid volunteers from community groups explained their proposed changes directly to civil servants from government departments, who are holding what they described as a big society meeting to help break down the barriers in the way of progress. So far, plans for the area have been developed to speed up the installation of rural broadband, to install a hydroelectric generator on the Eden River, to develop community-based public transport provision in the valley, and increasingly to let the community decide for itself how council budgets should be spent. The Big Society program aims to change how civil servants operate. Okay, so operate differently. So civil servants operate differently. Okay, um, so yeah, I can see that. Instead of just providing advice to ministers, now also have to help communities of all kinds cut through bureaucratic rules to empower community groups. Okay, so it's going to be one of BOD. Okay, so here to empower community groups, instead of just providing advice to ministers, now they have to do something else as well. So significantly different outcomes. I'd probably say D is the answer. Okay, big society program operates. So this is where the knowledge and you've got to keep ideas in your head. I remember it said around here, help communities of all kinds. So I would say C is the answer, both rural and urban. Aims to give volunteers a chance to receive detailed factual information about proposals and costs, get directly involved in taking decisions running projects. I think this is probably going to be the answer. State any objections they have, suggest alternative policy. I mean, none of these really make sense, right? And just from a general standpoint, I know what you're not meant to do is guess, but the point here is you can do that with some of these questions, right? This is, this is sometimes the best way to proceed with it. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I thought I'd just go through kind of two question sets as such. And if this is something that you guys did find helpful, and if you did want me to keep doing these slow walkthroughs, this is definitely something I should be able to do. Just please let me know down in the comment section what you'd like to see next. And thank you so much for 3,250 subscribers. It really does mean a lot. Yeah, crazy numbers. And also please let me know what you guys would like to see next in these upcoming kind of weeks and months as we move past the Ucat season. Okay, so I will see you guys in the next video, and thank you as always.